G'day and welcome to The Outer Side. I'm Tony, and in this episode I'm joined by Jess Edwards, better known to most as JILLAROO Jess. Welcome to the show, Jess.
Thanks for having me.
So, you've got a pretty interesting story insofar as you've done a lot of different stuff. So, you're a JILLAROO, it's obviously by name. So you're a farmer, you're a truck driver, you've done work in media, you've done a lot of work with brands like GME and Can-Am and a couple of others. So what was your journey into where I guess I came across you, which was as a JILLAROO? How did you end up on a cattle station in Western Australia?
It is such a long story and I don't know. Look, obviously everyone else finds it interesting.
You have 1 hour, so as long as you can fit the story into 1 hour, we're good.
Well, so look, I was born in Brisbane.
Yep.
And I left Brisbane when I was 15 with my family. My dad wanted to try a bit of farming, so we moved up near Gympie and had a block up there. And I finished off my schooling and all that sort of stuff. And I've always been interested in the country, you know, like when I was young, the H word, horse, was banned. Like I was not allowed to say the H word.
Really?
Because I'd just be like, can I have a horse? Can I have a horse?
Oh, just one of those, I need to have a horse.
Weird horsey girl,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. You know, and like my dad's side, they hailed from, you know, like Kingaroy area and peanut farming and all that sort of stuff. But it skipped my parents' generation. So I feel like it is a bit in my blood, but anyway, so we went up to Gympie and we're up on a property up there. And, you know, when I left school, I was I wasn't really sure of who I was and where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be, you know. So I tried lots of different things. Mm-hmm. I'm very creative minded. So my first real job was at the Gympie Regional Gallery, the art gallery.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
there you go.
Yeah, and during all this time, I think I started when I was 16, I was volunteering at local radio stations. So,
yeah, right. So the media's always been in the background. So you've always had an interest in media, definitely. I suppose. Yeah. But I wasn't really, I don't know, I'm someone with such a broad range of interests that I'm very average at a lot of things. Right? Yeah, and that's all right. But you're willing to have a crack at everything, which I think is what's so admirable about you, is that you might not know how to do something, but you'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, I have no problem looking like an idiot.
Yeah. Well, that's a good trait to have as well, right? I think fear of looking silly prevents so many people from actually going out and experiencing things.
Yep.
They don't want to be bad at stuff.
Yep.
It's it's okay to not be the best at everything, right?
But if you're not bad at something, you don't learn how to fix that situation.
Correct.
You know?
It's like me recording a podcast. I have no idea what I'm doing, but every time I record one, I learn something. And hopefully after about 100 episodes, we'll get somewhere where it's a quality product.
Well, we'll see what you learn today.
Yeah, well, we've learned a few things on this shoot already. Not this podcast shoot, but obviously we're up here. We've been up here this week shooting a GME commercial, and they say not to work with children or animals. We've had a number of animals involved, but luckily they've been quite well behaved.
They have.
So from a bit of radio work and the Gympie Regional Art Gallery, where'd you go from there?
Well, I then was a promo girl for a radio station.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And then, I just I don't know, look, I was in my late teens, probably early 20s, and still kind of trying to work out where I fit. And the bloke that I was seeing at that time, he was a contract musterer. So he'd, go contract mustering from, southwest Queensland, central Queensland and that sort of stuff. So I'd tag along when I could, and every bit of annual leave and weekend and everything I could, I'd go out there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I had, I think at that stage I was working in the council in IT.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm a bit of a nerd.
Yeah, well, we knew that. Yeah, so when you say mustering, what sort of, because there's different types of mustering, right? So are you on horses, motorbikes, choppers?
Horses and bikes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So big station stuff?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's all
relative.
Totally relative. So, I think at that time, it was 100,000 acres.
Okay, so pretty big, but not.
Big, but then when you're actually in it, that's not that big. You know
what
I mean?
Okay. And then you've got some of those stations out in the NT that are millions of acres, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were doing that, I guess, just in your spare time, just tagging along because it was interesting.
Yep.
And then you ended up doing that as a job, right?
Eventually.
Yeah, right.
So this is where it turns into like such a long story.
Yeah.
So because it was all part-time stuff, casual stuff, cashies, like in my annual leave, it was never really properly on my resume.
Okay.
So when I eventually went over to WA and decided that I wanted to drive trucks, because I'd driven a truck on a station in central Queensland, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
I feel pretty tough. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but no one would take me. I got my license. No one would take me seriously
Because you're a girl.
Possibly.
Oh,
likely.
It's a serious question. Like,
It is. Yeah. I don't know. Like, you never know until the situation's there. But if there was a bloke with no experience and a license, and a girl with no experience and a license, and you were offered both resumes, exactly the same except gender, which one do you reckon you'd choose? Like,
well, for me, it's hard to know because, like, I mean, I'm in marketing, right? And I've always had a pretty even split. You know, I've had different members in my team. I've always had girls and guys, and I don't really care what their gender is. I care about their skills and their cultural fit with the team, you know? Like, so I've had good and bad male and females. Like, you know, I don't think it's relevant, but I think in truck driving, it's a heavily male-dominated industry, right?
yeah.
And it's a generally older demographic, so potentially some of those gender stereotypes still exist. That was why I asked the question, right?
Totally. Like, there's been some nonsense, you know, for sure, that has happened over the years, you know, like...
So you've got like a MC license, right? Like you can drive a road train.
Yeah.
So you went over to WA to do that. Were you moving cattle, or what were you driving?
Well, when I went over there, it was just I think what it was... I was in my early 20s, and I went over there just to join my family over there, and I thought I'd just drive trucks in the mines. Because that was, you know, I had heard that they liked women in the trucks because they were more gentle on the gear and yada yada.
A bit more responsible.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. Hey, even like the big tippers in the mines and stuff, there's a lot of girls driving them.
Yeah. Yep. So there really is.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's not that ego, or, you know, and we're probably like more nervous about stuffing it up, because if we stuff it up, everyone's watching.
Yeah,
so like
definitely.
we are so like tuned into like, oh, what's that noise? Like,
and you're less likely to bin a truck off the side of a quarry because you're a bit more careful than the average bloke, right?
Generally.
Yeah.
But it is also a numbers game. Like, there's more blokes. I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, so I went over there. Drive trucks in the mines was what I wanted to do. But yeah, because I didn't have the resume for it, I looked like, you know, I'd work in council, an art gallery, a radio station, and, you know, I'd only helped out on, you know, contracting and on the weekends and whenever I could. I wasn't taken seriously. So I did a little bit of admin there for a little while. Kept getting in trouble because I kept leaving the office to go.
Oh really? Go play with the machinery.
Literally, I was working at a hire place, cleaning, and I would get in trouble because I'd rather be outside cleaning the bobcat that had come back from hire than in the office.
Yeah, fair enough. So, and you have that like inclination towards mechanical stuff, right? Like you've always been into like cars and trucks and machinery and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely not like a fanatic in the way that I cannot tell you, you know, the different versions of, you know, A, B, and C,
right.
but like I'm fascinated by how things work.
Yeah, for sure.
So like the other day I changed out a C15 in a Kenworth on the side of the road.
As you do.
Randomly.
Yeah.
For someone else.
Yeah.
It's still going, I checked.
For a bloke. Yeah, good. So you were doing stuff in the mines. Did you end up getting a driving job in the mines or not?
Not immediately.
Yeah,
no.
right.
So they didn't take me seriously. No one was interested. I applied and I was handing out resumes, and this was over in the Pilbara.
Pretty frustrating.
It was frustrating. So, but I'm adaptable and I'm creative, and, you know, progress isn't a straight line.
Yep.
So sometimes you got to deviate over here and deviate over here. And so I decided I wanted to go drive a tractor in harvest.
Yeah, okay.
Down in the bottom of WA. So it didn't seem like much then because I was still in the same state. But if you think about it, it was like driving from Townsville to Victoria to go work.
Yeah, massive, right?
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah, so I drove 2,500 Ks to go drive a tractor for harvest. Finally, I got that on my resume. I went back home after the harvest season was done 3 months later, got offered 2 jobs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating? Like, I know for me, when I was first trying to get into marketing, and I have no marketing degree, I didn't have any experience. Just getting someone to give you a go is the biggest hurdle, right? And then as soon as you've got that one little bit of experience, then people go, oh, you know, they've done it before. But you need to give people that opportunity, right?
Yep.
And I know through my career, there's been a few instances where I've given people jobs that they've got no experience in, and they've all turned out pretty good. Like if they're a good person and they're a willing learner and a good worker, like the experience comes, but you can't get experience without someone giving you a go, right?
Yeah. And that, but also, you know, good on you, because you're clearly molding these people and helping create, you know, who they are in that scenario.
Yeah, well, I always think back to the person that gave me a go, and I know that there was a turning point in my life, and this lady's name was Antoinette Elkris, and she was the one that went, you should work in marketing, and I'm going to make you get a job over there, and that was the start of what's turned into an awesome career that I really love. But if she hadn't given me a go, it never would have happened. I'd still be answering phones in a call centre.
Are you still
not.
in contact with her?
No, I haven't spoken to her for a number of years, but we worked together for a long time, and like I'll never forget that lady. She was like, I've got so much respect for her, and I'm so thankful that she was, I don't know, saw something in me, I guess, and went, hey, I reckon you'd be good at this.
Yeah.
So from there, you were doing contract harvesting work, is that right? So like, because that's not an all year thing, right?
Yeah, so it was, well, contract is more like under your own ABN and all that sort of stuff. This was, you know, working for the farmer.
Oh, okay.
So if you're a contractor, you'd be in it in a team, and they'd be taking their tractor, you know, around to all these different farms and doing it for this farmer and this farmer and this farmer.
Yeah, right.
So in that scenario, I was, just on this one.
Yeah, right. And so the farmer owns the machinery,
Yeah.
and you're just working in one place.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So anyway, so I got a job. Finally, I got offered 2 jobs. I took one for Veolia.
Yeah, right.
So
that's waste management, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Oh, Garbo life.
Yeah.
I've been Garboing so much in my life. But it's really funny because occasionally, like if you look through the Veolia handbook, which all the new employees get when you work for Veolia, if you look through it, there's me.
Oh, really?
There's like a 22-year-old Jess in there.
Yeah.
And occasionally I get like photos from people and they're like, oh, is this you? I'm like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Are you in a bin catalogue? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
literally.
right.
So literally like at one point in my career, I was the highest paid female garbage lady in Australia.
Really? That's a pretty good
That's a
claim to
claim-
fame.
yeah.
You should put that on LinkedIn. Do you have a LinkedIn page?
I do actually.
Yeah, I reckon that should be like your little bio. Once the highest paid female garbo in Australia.
Literally.
That's good.
Yeah.
So where along this journey did the infamous truck video happen that, I guess, in some respects, kickstarted your social media empire, shall we call it?
Well, you know, before then, so that got me to like 30,000 likes on Facebook in 2016, which
Just
is
from one video?
kinda.
Yeah, okay.
So I got to 10,000 before that for making fun of Nissan patrols.
Really?
Yes.
That is absolutely hilarious.
And triggering.
Yeah. Yep. And it's funny because we're actually sitting here with 2 GQs in the background of the shoot at the moment, and 2 GQ owners observing this conversation.
I know, that's why I had to say it.
Brilliant. So you were taking the piss out of Nissan patrols. So were you already interested in 4-wheel drives? Like, did you already have a 4-wheel drive
I'm just a
yourself?
smart aleck.
And you just decided to pick on that particular subsection of the community?
Pretty much.
Brilliant.
No, look, I have always been interested in vehicles and cars and, you know, motorbikes, and like I've always been, you know, just a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
Really. So when did that happen? Yeah, so that was the Nissan video I did that got to 10,000 likes, which that was 2015. That was massive.
Back then.
To have 10,000 followers on Facebook in 2015 was huge.
And like, was Instagram even a thing then?
Yeah, but
can't
not
really
like it is
remember.
now. No, Facebook was like king.
The one, yeah.
Yeah. So, so anyway, so that was when I was driving trucks, and there was a bloke over there, Snowy, he's almost like your lady in the way that he gave me a bit of an opportunity to learn on the big trucks.
Yep.
So, and yeah, I was in his yard at the time with a cruiser, and yeah, I honestly actually forget what the video was.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? Where you're sitting in the cab just taking the piss out of road users, and you're talking about caravans and all that sort of stuff. That was the first video of yours that I saw, because it pretty much went viral, right?
Like, yeah, because I don't look, and especially back then, like I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
Like I did not look like a girl who drove trucks and cattle road trains.
And the average truck driver, I mean, we just did that campaign for GME, and I think the data said the average age of a truck driver is like over 49 or something.
Yeah.
So it's like a 49-year-old male or a mid-20s girl sitting in a truck taking the piss out of caravanners and other road users.
It was terrifying, to be honest. So that was when I was actually on a station as a leading hand. And that block was 250,000 acres.
Okay.
And it was beautiful. It was like desert country. It was lovely.
In WA?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So, so I eventually obviously went from Veolia and finished up there and went onto this station.
Yeah.
And the bloke who was previously paddock carting. So there's a couple of different types of like truck driving on stations, right?
Okay.
Like there's the trucks that go to, I don't know, the ports, really, where, the ports in Broome was where the highway trucks are going. And then there's also the paddock carters.
Yep.
So the paddock carter is still a road train, but it goes in through the stations and to the next one. And because the group that I was on, it was like 5 or 6 different stations in the same company.
Group, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'd just go between them and pick them all up and stuff.
And are the trucks different, like in terms of the setup, or they just do different jobs?
Pretty similar setup. Yeah. Just one's really rough.
One's clean.
Nice.
One's clean and one's dirty. Yeah,
pretty much.
And you mentioned you were a leading hand. So what does that mean for a city kid like me?
It's pretty much like any other leading hand that you have in any other industrial situation.
I work in an office. So like a manager?
Basically.
Or a foreman
like
or something?
A foreman, like a supervisor, like...
Okay.
Yeah, not quite the manager, but just a step kind of below, like on...
So in a couple of years, you'd gone from not being able to get a gig to then being the leading hand on a pretty big operation.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that video that we're talking about, like, I remember that coming up on my feed, and I'd never heard of you, and I don't even know why it came up, but it came up and I watched it, and I remember going back to the guys at GME and saying, I think I've found this girl that we should get on as an ambassador. And then I remember having the conversation, and like there was a few like head scratches, like, because we've been heavily focused on 4-wheel driving and agriculture and heavy vehicle. But before I took over marketing at GME, and this is it's a bit embarrassing in some respects, it was all male dominated marketing and very male focused. And for me to propose to the business to bring on a female ambassador, there was a bit of a like, huh? But we've now worked with you since, 2017? I think we're trying to work this out the other night, right? And then I guess we've had a relationship for a long time, and the reason that it's been so beneficial for us is because everything you do seems to involve radios.
It does.
So, whether it's farming, whether you're on the stations, whether you're driving a truck, whether you're doing 4-wheel drive stuff, there's radios in all of that, right?
But even the PLBs, like I have been involved in some pretty serious incidents on the station. So like from, death to pretty serious injury that needed, angel flight there.
Right.
So, like safety is, and maybe because I'm a girl as well, like we're generally a little bit more focused on safety.
Yeah.
We're very protective.
A bit more risk averse than maybe some of us.
Less Captain Risky.
Yes.
So like, just the safety aspect. Even the PLBs, like I always have one with me. I've got one in my truck. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah. So, I mean, just to touch on that, like you mentioned, you've seen someone die on a station. So, and like people get really badly hurt. You've been really badly hurt. So it is dangerous work, right?
Oh, totally. It's not if you'll get hurt, it's when and how bad.
Yeah, and you're in remote areas, and it's not like you just like jump in the car and go to the hospital, right?
You can't just walk it off.
Nah, definitely not.
I tried, and then my leg snapped and I fell over.
Yeah, right. So maybe we should talk about that. And then there's one other thing that I'd love to talk to you about, which is when you almost swallowed a taipan. But can we talk about what happened to you a couple of years ago in terms of working with cattle and what happened there?
Yeah, so I was working on a property north of Mackay, and we were in the yards, and it wasn't like old mate had just kind of bought these properties, so he was building it up, and the yards were terrible, and the cattle were half wild, and they were station cattle on a small property.
Okay.
So Station cattle aren't, like, there's a lot of, I don't know, how far do you go into it when, like, I don't know my audience.
No,
like,
well, it doesn't matter.
You don't know cow breeds.
I know cow breeds. And look, if anyone doesn't understand what you're talking about, well, then they can choose to...
They can Google it.
They can choose to keep listening, stop listening, or Google it. But no, go for it. I think it's really interesting. So as an outsider or someone who doesn't know much, station cattle, huge property, not used to being confined in yards, right?
Sums it up. Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. So basically, because he'd had previously owned a station and then sold it to the mines, so I think, I don't know for sure, but I think he brought some of those cattle onto his new block, which was
so just a bit wilder.
Yeah, so they're bubble. They call it your bubble, like, you know, like how close you let someone to you.
Yes.
Basically. So like quiet cattle, dairy cattle, this is their bubble, right?
Yeah.
You know, station cattle, the bubble's over there.
Yeah, right. And even like on this property that we've been on, these cattle are really, I'd say, quite tame, right? Like you were in the yards with them the other day and they were just chilling. They didn't really care. The other day we were standing in a paddock and they walked up to us. Yep. Station cattle aren't going to do that, right? They're going to stay away from you?
No, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Not because of any poor handling or anything like that, just literally the lack of handling.
Which is what they know, right? What they know is being away from people.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like they get mustered in a couple of times a year.
Yep.
That's the only time they see people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so smaller operations are a lot more intensive and they get handled and they deal with more people, so they need to be quiet. And, but there's a lot of good operations and things happening these days. There's a lot of like low stress clinics that like people go to learn, you know, to learn how to manage these cattle and animal husbandry to keep everyone safe. And
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you were on a new property that you weren't familiar with wild cattle, or not wild cattle, but station cattle in a confined space in the yards, and something went wrong.
Yeah. So it wasn't a new property that I was on. Like I'd been there for probably, I don't know, a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they'd always been a little bit rough to deal with. But that's okay. Like I get a kick out of it because it's just a bit of adrenaline.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, in the yards, there was just this mad cow, and just trying to work around her. And the boss was like, "Oh yeah, look, I'll distract her for a minute. You go do the job around her." So I did, and then she chased me up the fence, and then spooked something on the other side, and yeah, basically.
So
Jess in a heap.
you explained this the other day. So 2 cattle hit the same bit of fence that you were on.
Yeah.
So you basically got sandwiched.
I did. Yeah. So, and my leg got caught, and basically my leg got caught and the cow hit like that.
Oof.
So I had an avulsion fracture to my tibia, which means like your legs dislocated that far, it's pulled the top of the bone off. ACL, MCL, PCL, all the CLs
just blew your knee apart.
It just blew it to bits.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even use crutches for 12 weeks. I was literally bedbound because it was just mincemeat is what the surgeon described it as.
And so your recovery from that was pretty long, right?
Yeah. And it's still going. Like I can work now, which is good.
Yeah.
But like if I touch it, it still really hurts. That's 3 years ago now.
Yeah. And that was a bit of a tough time for you, right? Like in terms of your inability to do the work that you wanted to do?
Yep.
So how did you deal with that? Is that when you sort of pivoted and started doing a bit more on the media side, or how did you get through that?
I read a lot of books. I tried to teach myself sign language. I started learning Spanish. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I love learning. Like
yeah, okay.
I had to really keep my brain active because I am prone to a bit of depression. So like sitting on that couch for 3 months.
Yeah.
Without even being able to use, and I was in a double-story house. So like I literally was stuck in the top of my house for over 3 months.
Wow. And that's got to be hard for anyone, but especially someone like you that loves being outside, loves being on properties and out doing stuff. You know, some people would be like, oh, okay, cool, I'll play computer games, but you're not that sort of person.
No, I was like at the window looking outside, looking at my partner like cartwheel around the yard as he does.
Yeah. High energy individual.
Literally. And I'm like, baby, come
So that was, oh my God. So that would have been really, really difficult. And was it about that time that you're doing work with Offroad Adventure Show, or did that come before or after that injury?
Before.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So 2018 actually, sorry. End of 2018 was the first time I was on the Offroad Adventure Show. We've kind of like done all this.
Yeah, and that's fine. And you know what? It's so weird for me because I'm like, I think that the Offroad Adventure Show episode that I went on was like a couple of years ago. It was 5 years ago that I went on that show.
5 years ago?
5 years.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter that we're jumping around. This is not a linear discussion, so no one's going to know or care about the order that we're chatting about these things. So you got an opportunity to be on the Offroad Adventure Show, which at the time was a four-wheel drive TV show on free-to-air television.
Yep.
Had you done any TV stuff before that?
Kinda.
Okay.
So when, around about the same time that truck video came out, that viral one, on that station that I was over in Western Australia, I was approached by Terrain Tamer.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You were doing some work with, was it Alan?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I did 2 series with them, and they were mainly based on YouTube. They're very well done. Very well done. And so the first one was they were, helping me make my cruiser outback kind of, safe and solid, and, upgrading the, radiators, heavy duty radiators, upgraded gearbox with the modified 5th gear, since cruisers just rev their guts out. So I did a series with them. That also was on Foxtel.
Right.
Yeah, so that was my first, even though I'd done media, I'd written for magazines, I used to, I interviewed, country music artists for...
Oh, for the radio station?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And bits and pieces like that for years. This was my first real foray into this filming. So there was that. And then once I finished up on those stations, I mucked around for a while. I went grain carting. I, did my thing everywhere.
Yep.
I went up to the Gulf of Queensland and was out of Cloncurry, did some filming with Terrain Tamer.
Yeah, right.
Was driving triple road trains up there. I did an ad for Qantas up there.
Oh, yeah, that was the one on the station, right?
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's my favourite work so far.
Well, until this commercial that we shot this week comes out, because that's going to be better, I reckon. So you were doing, I guess, sort of ad hoc work, like the Terrain Tamer thing and then the Qantas thing, and then with Offroad Adventure Show, that was more like a full-time gig for a period?
Yeah, so it probably took about, 3 months a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was doing, I've always tried really hard to mesh, my passions all together, which is literally farming, trucking and media.
Yep.
Trying to get all them. So, yeah, I was working up in Cloncurry. I was doing that. I, got more of an opportunity, the Qantas thing. Then I got the Offroad Adventure Show thing. So because I was doing that 3 months a year, and that wasn't straight, that was including four drive shows and all that sort of stuff, I couldn't really give anyone else full-time commitment with the work, because I realistically, the filming was I'm not going to give that up. It's cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
It is so fun. So I kind of I floated around a lot. Went back garboing for a little bit.
Yeah, true.
Then I went down to Victoria to work for a mate, Danny, cutting cattle by B-double. I was very transient, because I was aware that it would stuff employers around if I went full-time somewhere.
Yeah, and then you have to leave for 3 weeks or go up to the Cape or whatever, Tasmania.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I floated around and I did that. And then when I was down in Victoria too, that's when we filmed in Tasmania for Offroad Adventure Show. So I think it was 4 seasons.
Yeah, right. Was it that many?
Yeah.
Yeah, full on. And I mean, it was always interesting because you've always, as long as I've known you, you've had cruises, but you wouldn't call yourself a four-wheel driver, right?
No.
But then you ended up on a four-wheel drive show.
I know. I say I'm an adventurer.
Yeah.
I love adventuring, and to me, the four-wheel drive is a tool to adventure.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I think one of the toughest things with getting into the four-wheel drive scene is some of the stuff that I would just do on a daily basis, over doing water runs, checking animals' water and stuff, which was a 2-day job to check all of the waters over the stations. Some of the stuff I would do in the crappiest old car was, one-handed while looking at, something I'd be doing all this stuff that was then difficult
Yeah.
for four drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you were like doing hard driving, but you were doing it because you had to get somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Not just the stuff that I do where I just drive up a hill for no reason and then drive back down again.
Yeah, but it was just normal for me, and it's not hard. Like, I just didn't find it hard, you know?
Yeah, and look, we all know, right? There's an element of showmanship in a lot of those four-wheel drive shows. I've been on them, you've been on them. It's entertainment, right? So
totally.
we've got to make it interesting for the viewer. If we're like, oh, everything's easy and you just drive everything, it's kind of like, that's boring.
But it's such like a mindset you have to get into, because once you really learn how filming works, like, you know, I mean, you watch the show and you go, righto, they go from A to B. Well, no, reality is we went from A to A.1 to A.2 to A, well, the cameras come around it, you know? Like,
yeah, and I think that's one thing that people don't really understand, and that's fair enough if you haven't done it, but just the time it takes to produce that content, right? Like, you drive a truck just to get somewhere and you can do it in 10 minutes, but if you're filming, it might be 4 or 5 hours on that one track. So it is time consuming. And then I know for me, when the first time I went on one of those shows, I kept getting in trouble from the producer because I wouldn't talk on the in-car. And I'm like, yeah, but when I'm four-wheel driving by myself, I'm not talking my way through it, you know?
You are swearing.
Yeah. I'm just terrified behind the wheel, holding on for dear life. But yeah, I guess it is quite different, right? And did you enjoy that work?
Totally.
Yeah?
Totally.
And that was something quite different for you. Like, it was going from like driving a B-double full of cattle to then being in a four-wheel drive TV show. It's fairly different.
It is. I think, like, because I got such a variety, and I still do, like, my brain I just love learning. And once I stop learning, I just turn off. Like, I'm just not interested. I'm so bored. Yeah. So, like, because I've got so many, like, little fingers in different pies, and I was doing the filming, and I was still doing the trucking, and still doing this and that, like, it kept me really interested.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, hey?
Yeah.
So that finished up, and then from there, you did some other TV stuff after the Offroad Adventure Show?
Yep. I was also a side character in the Aussie Truck Rehab.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is a truck show based around John Kelly and all his cool trucks that he's got. And when I say truck, I don't mean...
I know
GQ.
what you're going to say.
I
So
mean,
Jess has got a little bit of a bee in her bonnet about people in the four-wheel drive industry and community calling their four-wheel drives trucks. I do it all the time, and I'm told repeatedly by Jess that they are not, in fact, trucks.
Oh, did you buy a Kenworth, Tony?
Yes. So to be clear, Jess's opinion of a truck is what, a Kenworth or a Mack?
Yeah, something like that.
Or a Peterbilt. Yeah, right. So big trucks.
It's funny because I never actually, like, in so many ways, like, I was pretty naive coming into the Ford driving stuff, because there was just, I mean, I tell you, in an industry, you don't really understand what goes on in it. So I remember at the Sydney Ford Drive show one time, I was there with Tamer, and this bloke was telling me about his truck, and like,
And you thought he was talking about an actual truck?
I thought he was talking about an actual truck.
Yeah, it was like a Mitsubishi Pajero.
No, it was an Isuzu. And so that only, like...
so that made it worse.
But yeah, it made it worse because there are Isuzu trucks.
Yeah,
and
right.
And he told me, oh, it's an Isuzu truck. Oh, it's an Isuzu. And I said, oh yeah, one of the four-wheel drive ones.
And he's thinking,
like a
you
four-wheel
idiot.
drive. It started to get a bit weird, and then it clicked, and I was like, oh.
It's a D-Max.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, right. That's too funny.
It was so awkward.
I can imagine.
But at that same show, was in my private life, I shook that many hands, because that was my first Sydney show with Tamer, I'm pretty sure. I shook that many hands, and my hands were that much rougher than every other bloke's hand that I shook. Oh, really?
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're at a Sydney four-wheel drive show, right? We all work in offices.
In my private life, I've started wearing gloves now.
Oh, really?
So that my hands aren't callous, so it's not embarrassing.
I think that's great. It's like, yeah, who's the realist here?
I don't want to emasculate people with my calluses, you know?
Yeah, lovely. Just on that, can I just say, like, I get so grossed out. I'm pretty, like, I don't really care about, like, being in the bush and not showering for a couple of days, but, like, going to those shows and just shaking hundreds of hands, I feel gross after that, hey? Yeah. Like, especially we went to the Brisbane 4x4 show a couple of years ago, and it was like 37 degrees.
Ooh.
And I felt so disgusting, like, by the afternoon from just shaking strangers' hands. I was like, I used like a litre of hand sanitizer at that show. Yeah. It's quite full on, right? Yeah. And just to talk about that, so you've done a lot of appearances at four-wheel drive shows, and you come to Denny with GME every year, which is always pretty fun. How do you how do you go with that? Because it can be quite
overwhelming.
Overwhelming, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think everyone kind of expects me to be very extroverted. I classify myself as like a confident introvert.
Yep.
Like I can, fake it and talk and, smile and stuff. But I will literally, like you asked Milton, as soon as I go home, like I cannot stay awake for about 2 days.
Yeah, okay.
Like I will be sitting there at the dinner table, like nodding, like it's...
Because it's very draining.
Exhausting.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a tough thing that, it comes with the territory, right? And as your public profile grows, more fans want to talk to you and they want to interact with you.
And I'm so thankful for them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I want to give them all like talking
and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But then I know like even when we go to Denny every year, by like the end of that show, you're just fried, right? Because you've talked to so many people and like it's awesome. It's great, but it is quite taxing, right?
It is. And I just want to give everyone the time of day because I'm so thankful for those people because they have helped support me during this. But I'm like, you've seen me at Denny, like I'm literally losing my voice and I'm like, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, yeah, it gets hard. But I mean, I think Denny particularly, I just see the people that are coming up to talk to you and it's like young girls that idolise you and then want to be you, right? Like they want to drive trucks and they want to work on stations because you've been out there and promoted that, hey, girls can do this too. And I love seeing that element of it. And then there's like a bunch of other fans, different demographics. But for me, that's the most important one because people, like, I wouldn't say people idolise you, right? Young girls idolise what you've done and what you represent. And I think that's something that you should be really proud of.
I mean, that's all. Well, thank you. That's all social media is, right? Like all your followers either want you or want to be you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like...
hate you.
Yeah, true.
There's always that element that's just there to like wait for you to do something stupid and tease you about it. In my life, that's cowboy tuned. I mentioned it earlier and I just want to jump back to the Offroad Adventure Show for a second here. Can you talk about the time that you nearly swallowed a taipan?
We were up near Winton. It was not long after floods and there was a few dry rivers that were flowing again and it was just beautiful. Like it had been hot, we've been filming, there wasn't many showers had, we were all disgusting, like it's not smell-o-vision.
Yep.
And we're laying in this riverbed and there's a high like clay content in some of the soil up there. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like I'm going to slide down on my stomach, like down this bank into the river. And Jamie, my colleague at the time, was in the river and he's down there. Anyway, so I slid down there and he and I get along pretty well and he gives me a bit of curry and, you know.
Yeah, he's good for that.
Teases me a lot. So it was like the boy who cried wolf, right? Like he starts like, I don't know. He was like, oh, kind of something, like some sort of something was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, leave me alone, Jamie.
Oh, you just didn't take him seriously.
I didn't take him seriously. And he eventually got through to me that there was a snake, and I'm like, oh crap! So then I hop up onto the kayak or whatever it was that we had there, and we didn't see it again. But he was confused because I've like got a long plait. He wasn't sure if it was a snake or whether it was my plait.
Yeah, okay.
But so a snake went over my back in the river, and we've got this footage because of course it was on film. Which is awesome. So of course, like we got straight out to go have a look to see.
Yeah, to see what it was.
And there's this thing, and there's this snake right next to my head.
Yeah, it was like quite close to your mouth, right? And
yeah.
so that would have been, was that an inland taipan or a coastal taipan? You don't know?
I honestly
Either
don't
way,
even know.
like they're both quite spicy, right?
It could have even been, it was either a taipan or a brown.
Yeah, right.
You
so
know.
nothing friendly.
No. I think it was a taipan because it had a bit of a white lip.
Yeah. And you can see it quite clearly. I've seen the footage.
Yeah.
Like it was very close.
Yeah. I screamed like a girl. It was a very high pitch.
Probably fair enough. So, I mean, you've been all over the country. You've literally worked all over the country, right? Do you have a favourite place? Like a favourite state or a favourite region?
I would say, as a country worker, Cloncurry has a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, okay.
As a traveller, Karrajini National Park in Western Australia.
Okay, is that
Pilbara.
like up north?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Northwest. Yeah, I'm a red dirt girl.
Yeah.
I love the red dirt. Queensland, I'm a Queenslander, so Queensland's always home. But if I had the opportunity to go back to WA and buy a property over there that I wanted, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, really. It's funny. I talk to so many people about this, and WA always comes up. Hey, like everyone's always like, "Oh, West is best," and not just the West Australians, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's a stunning state, right?
Yeah.
And it's got everything. Oh, it doesn't have snow.
No, but I don't like so anyway.
Yeah, you don't like the cold, right?
No.
Yeah, so we've stitched you up with this particular commercial, getting you to come to the New South Wales high country in the middle of winter.
That's fine. No, I'm happy.
So maybe we can talk about what we've been doing this week. So no secret, I work for GME, and you've been an ambassador for, we're trying to work it out, about 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
And for that 7 years, we've always talked about involving you in a commercial shoot, and then COVID and leg breakages and God knows what else has got in the way. But we finally managed to pull one together, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we've been using a Can-Am. And that's actually another company that you do some work with.
Yeah, so the two main businesses that I work with now, the partnerships I have is GME and Can-Am.
Yeah, cool.
So, which are two companies that are so supportive of rural Australians and agriculture. And,
Yeah, and I mean, for us, it's our heartland, right? Like, farmers and the farming community literally kicked off UHFCB usage in Australia, right? Like, that is the backbone of UHFCB comms. It's still a critical component of working on a farm, right? And for Can-Am, I suppose, that'd be quite different for them because it's an American company, right?
Canadian.
Canadian?
Yeah.
Is that why it's called Can-Am? Is that Can something to do with Canadian?
I should know that answer, but I do not.
I don't know.
But that's actually very smart.
I'm like, maybe.
Well, it's BRP is the company.
Okay. So how does that work? So Can-Am do like a whole range of stuff, right? Like, don't they make motorbikes and stuff as well?
Yeah, but with Australian laws and stuff, no company, basically, except for these cheap Chinese ones, are bringing quads into Australia.
Yeah, so that's been a really big changing point, right? Because quad bikes have killed a lot of people. So the government changed the legislation to put ROPs on them, so like those big poles on the back of the quads, and so the market's shifted to side-by-sides or UTVs, right?
Yeah, which is awesome.
They're so much more usable, right?
They really, and they've got shade. You can put stuff in the back. Like,
yeah, the little tray, and they're super capable and like a fair bit safer, right?
Yeah, there is a place for quads, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with. I mean, this one's not mine. Mine's in a bit better nick, but
yeah, this one's flogged. Poor little
it's a
thing.
workhorse.
Yeah, but so what does your work with them involve? So you've got a property yourself now.
Yep.
So you've got Can-Ams. You use them as a business tool on your own property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
right.
do a lot of spraying out of it and.
Yeah, right. So we're like
push
spraying
the cows
weeds
around.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Push cows around and.
So you've got your own cattle now?
Yep.
Yeah, right. So what sort of cattle are you running up there in Queensland? They're a bit different to the ones down here, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a novelty seeing all the little fluffy.
Oh yeah, because they're quite hairy here, right?
Yeah, they got their winter PJs on.
Yeah, fully. Well, they'd need them because it is pretty cold.
Yeah, up there we've got mostly Brahman and Brahman cross.
Okay.
So they're the big droopy looking ones with the big ears and the hump that you see on their backs.
Yeah, and that hump is actually quite delicious.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and what's the reason for that? Are they like a hardier breed of cattle up there, or they deal with the heat better?
Ticks, heat. It's really a heat thing.
Okay.
So, and they, I know their ticks and stuff are a problem down here too, but they've got the cold temperatures which Brahman would not deal with. So if you bring southern cattle up north, they really struggle.
Yeah, right. Okay, they just die.
They turn into water buffalo. Like they drown themselves trying to stay cool.
And we were talking about this the other day. So a black cow in North Queensland wouldn't be that good, right? Because it would absorb so much heat, or it doesn't matter?
It definitely affects them.
Yeah,
We've got a lot of Brangus up there, which is Brahman cross Angus.
Yep.
And they're all black. And they're pretty popular.
Okay.
But it's funny how different coloured animals attract different insects.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the neighbour, he's got Brangus, we've got more greys and reds. And he gets more flies on his.
Bizarre.
Because of
the colour.
Because of the colour. Yeah.
Well, actually, I've experienced that even like when we've been out in the in the desert. Different coloured shirts attract more flies.
Yeah.
Like wearing a black shirt, which I usually do, is horrendous.
Yeah.
If you wear white, you don't get as many flies on you.
Yeah, it's and even zebra print. Apparently, zebra print was an insect thing.
Really?
So they sell zebra print horse rugs to help just like obviously their flies are just like, oh, what is
Yeah, they
this?
get confused, right? That's quite wild. And something else that I'd love to chat to you about briefly is dogs, because you are a dog lover.
Yeah.
You've had a few dogs over the years, and a lot of them are working dogs. So you're quite interested in the whole training side of them as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is this going?
Where is it going? No, I'm interested to know because, you know, I've always had dogs in my life. My dogs serve no other purpose than to bring me joy and for me to cuddle.
Yeah.
Your dogs, though, you've got dogs that are there to serve a purpose, right? They're a work tool.
Yeah. In recent years, it's been more working focused. But they're still there to bring me joy.
Yeah, part of your family. Yeah,
They are outside dogs. But I've always been interested in any sort of animal training.
Yeah.
Like when as I said, I grew up in Brisbane, and so our dogs. Mum has always had silky terriers, Australian silky terriers.
Yeah, right.
Little fluffy dogs.
Yeah.
So I used to teach them tricks.
Yeah, okay.
Like, make them play dead, and like even from when I was a little girl, like I used to constantly treat them. And like I was obsessed with having a horse, so I would lunge the dogs.
Yeah.
Like lunge the dogs. I'd set up water jumps for the dogs. Like
Yeah.
I'd set up a show jumping course for my dog.
Maybe you could come and try and train my Jack Russell because he doesn't listen to me. So you've got like, I guess what you call working breed dogs now, right? Not silky terriers.
Yep.
They probably wouldn't be so good on a cattle property.
No.
So what sort of dogs are you running now, and what do you use them for in terms of work?
Well, I've got 4 at the moment. Kelpie and Collie.
Yep.
Crosses. And yeah, they're just, as we're building up our property, kind of finally settled, up north of Mackay, near, between Mackay and Airlie sort of area. And we're building up the property with cattle and dogs, like working dogs around cattle. It's like the main aim is with when you're raising cattle is to basically, I mean, the focus wasn't so much in it back in the old days, but these days we recognise that the more stress you put on these cattle, the more they drop weight. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for your program. It's not good for the animals. It's not good for your bank account.
Yep.
Like we're all out there to do the best thing we can by these animals, so that the end product, so their life and the end product is as good as possible.
Absolutely.
So dogs come into this. If you've ever seen a working dog do a good job, there's a lot of blokes out there who are like, nah, don't, blah, 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 don't like dogs, whatever.
As in, don't like using dogs on cattle?
No.
Okay.
And a lot of them will claim that, working dogs make the cattle more susceptible to being attacked by wild dogs.
Because they're more familiar with having a dog around.
But if you've seen, even like during the shoot that we've recently done, if you've seen how smart cows are, pretty sure they can tell the difference between a trained working dog who is trying to mob them up as opposed to
one that's trying to pick off a calf.
Trying to pick it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, working dogs teach your cattle to mob up, which is a protective, stance as
it's
well.
like overwhelming, right? They don't know which one to pick.
Yeah.
It's like the calf off by itself is the problem one, right?
Yeah. So there's benefits to all, you know. So I literally I'll just stand at the fence. Like, mind you, I've only got 160 acres. So, but I can just stand at the fence and send the dogs and they'll go bring all the cows to the fence. Yeah. Like, it makes life easy.
And they do that without biting them and carrying on, right? So I guess, like, we were in the yards filming a couple of days ago and you were saying, like, the calmer you are, the calmer the cattle are. And I suppose that would be the same with the dog, right? Like, you don't want the dog to get too hyped up.
Well, no, but you also have to train your cattle on them.
Oh, so they've got to work as a team in some respects.
Yeah. So like when your cattle are young, you train them with your dog.
Okay.
Yeah, so that they learn that when the dog does this, they do this.
Yeah,
then it gets calm.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I suppose the first time you run a dog on a mob of cattle, it could get pretty entertaining.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So how does that work? Like, you're getting working dogs, right, from like a particular bloodline or something? Like, are they...
I'm still really kind of finding my stride in this.
Okay.
Because I didn't really have... I started dealing with working collies when I was a bit younger, and I was around a fair few of them. And then as I travelled around a lot with work, I didn't have dogs then. I just had my one dog. Yeah. And then now that I've finally settled somewhere in like the last 2 years, like I can get my little group going. So
yeah, sure.
I've always liked Kelpies,
Mm-hmm.
but I've got this little collie Kelpie bitch at the moment, and she's just a legend.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm like, maybe I should go back to collies a little bit.
Yeah,
but there's
right.
such like, you think like Toyota versus Nissan
Yep.
is the same with Kelpie and collie people.
Really?
Totally, it's a thing. Like,
That's bizarre.
it is.
Yeah, right. So the reason I'm asking that, like, are you training these dogs, or are you getting dogs that have already got that innate sense of working with cattle because of their bloodline?
I mean, you're either getting trained dogs or untrained dogs, but they are bred for the job.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Yeah,
right? So they've already got that sort of instinctive nature.
They're bred for that. Hey, like 6-week-old pup will try and, you know, I've seen them before, like trying to work a chook.
Really?
Yeah,
So
like
it's just in them.
bred into them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, I've trained 2 that I have at the moment, and then 1 was already trained when I got her.
Yeah, right. Okay. And like, do the dogs naturally work together, or do they have like personality clashes like people?
Oh, totally.
They do?
They do. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And especially with young dogs and older dogs. The young dogs can sometimes get a bit distracted and try and harass the older dogs, and you just
really?
see the older dogs like, just get out of my way.
Yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, what about if they're related? Because I know like daughters and mothers don't get along well, like even in domestic dogs.
Yeah. I forget what it's called. It's like litter. What is it called? It's litter something. But basically, there's a lot of recommendations that you do not get 2 pups out of the same litter.
Yeah.
Because they do disrespect each other.
I've had some pretty good fights with my sisters over the years.
Ditto.
Yeah, I guess that's a thing. So where to from here, Jess? I mean, you've had a pretty interesting story up until now. At one point, you could have been called Gypsy Jess instead of JILLAROO Jess because you were pretty nomadic. But now you have settled down. You got your property. Is that your primary focus now?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I need to have my finger in a few pies
Yeah.
to keep me interesting. You know, interesting and interested.
Yeah. Freudian slip. Yeah, right. So you don't know what you're going to do next?
Well, yeah, I've got a base now.
Yeah.
So I still want to do the media stuff, and I still want to do, like, I've got a Kenworth of my own.
Yep.
So, you know, I still do. I do the farming and the trucking, and you know, I'm doing the media stuff. So
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you don't really know how, like, what's next. Like
I don't know.
10 years ago,
I asked the
Facebook-
questions here, Jess.
This is rhetorical.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, it was Facebook. At the moment, it's YouTube and streaming.
Yeah.
Like, what's in another 10 years?
Who knows?
So I just go with the flow, and I say yes to the jobs I want to do,
Yeah.
and I say no to the ones I don't want to do.
It's a pretty good attitude. So you've got a truck now of your own.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are you doing up there with that? Is that just for your own property, or are you doing contract work, or
Yeah, a bit
what
of
is it?
contract work. Yeah. So when I hurt my knee, I kind of went, okay, well, I'm not, 20 anymore. I can't afford to work for $22 an hour.
Yeah.
And hurt myself for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I got the truck because it was a bit safer for my health.
Yeah, for sure.
And then started doing that. So I do a bit of contract stuff, doing like hot shot work.
What does that mean?
It's like express, it's like express post.
Sounds illegal.
It's express post for like 10-ton parts, right?
So like I need a cat engine for my dozer
literally, and
driven
it's
over
2
there.
a.m. But we're losing 10 grand a minute on this. Like that's
Wow.
that's what mining, the reality of mining.
So that would be pretty lucrative then to be in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've got to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go load a truck and
Literally.
drive wherever.
Yeah. You're on call 24/7.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but you just get a call up and they need something because of mining. Once one machine's down, they lose insane amount of money.
Yeah.
So they need that part there.
Isn't that funny though? Like you've kind of gone full circle in some respects. Like you were driving,
Yeah.
you were in a mine, and now you're supplying parts to mines. But
Yeah.
you've gone on a bit of a journey since then, right?
Yeah.
Well, look, it's been really good to sit down and talk to you about all of the stuff that you've done. I've learnt some things about you today that I didn't know, like working in art galleries and being promo girl for radio stations. So it's been quite entertaining. So thank you for being here, and thank all of you for joining us on this show. And we'll see you next time on the outer side.